I could maybe even string a whole sentence together if I put enough thought and effort into it. What time does Sean Connery get to Wimbledon?
Tennis. House.
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
10 out of 10 for effort, but it was terrible.
Complete and utter trash.
It was not good. Some weird noise that just came out of my face. It just makes no sense whatsoever.
Speaking French, wearing onions around their neck and surrendering to somebody. Hey, calm down.
I just sound like every other idiot.
Welcome to the Tuesday Show with CJ and Ted.
So I want to get into like role-playing games. So where you go into like shared servers with other players and you create characters and you just end up kind of role-playing different scenarios. I've seen so many YouTube videos on it, and I follow a number of channels on YouTube that do these things. The one thing I just can't get over though is how some people manage to do accents for their characters. So
okay.
Imagine me, I'm trying to, create a character from, I don't know, East Texas or something, for this particular scenario that I'm trying to play, and then I end up just talking in my normal voice because I can't do accents at all. Or I can do little bits that I've picked up from films and TV shows or something. So my question is, can you do accents? Have you ever tried, just in general conversation, just throwing an accent out there?
Yes, but only in a very limited way. What? I know some people can just flip from one to another, or more to the point, keep an accent going. I find that difficult.
Yes, it's like I can do phrases, or I can maybe even string a whole sentence together if I put enough thought and effort into it. But then I'll come across a word, or something that I've never attempted in any other accent apart from my own.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what to do, and I end up falling over it or just sounding like a complete idiot.
Yeah.
Because it's then clear that I'm just putting an accent on. Like, I remember I went into a roleplay server probably about 6 months ago or so, and I was putting on some, like, the worst American accent I could possibly do. Because, let's be honest, I'm a British guy, and I just sound terrible trying to do an American accent of any description.
Yeah.
And I recorded it for my own posterity, because I wasn't allowed to post it on YouTube. And I watched it back and I just went, this is terrible. This is so bad. I really want to know how people kind of master that ability. Is it just pure practice in their own time? Do they take coaching? What is it about trying to put on a fake accent that works for so many people? So yeah, the question was whether you could do it and whether you hadn't had any coaching tips, maybe.
I have no coaching tips as such. But professional actors go to voice coaches, particularly if they've got a part and they've got to put on a American accent or whatever it may be. But
do you think? Go on.
I think what most people do is concentrate, as you said, on phrases. So they go with particular phrases and then just kind of get them into that zone, and then so they do a few phrases and then they'll sort of carry on. It's the carrying on bit that's difficult.
Yeah. It's the improvisation that I think I'd struggle with. Like, I kind of picture myself like if I was an actor, and I had a part that, say, I had to do an American accent in, or for. You know what to say. You've got a script. You already know what you have to say, so you can practice saying that in an accent, or you can get a voice coach to help you practice that in an accent.
Yep.
It's how you then improvise that accent afterwards. If the situation calls for it, that I think I'd really struggle with, and I do struggle with. Like I say, I can do phrases, I can do things. We joke about tennis quite a lot. Tennis. Which of course, the question to that answer is, what time does Sean Connery get to Wimbledon? But yeah, I'm really like, how can I improve my own accent skills or my own conversational skills in a different, dialect or accent or whatever. It's weird. And so I thought actually we could have a bit of fun if you wanted.
Okay.
We could try and have a conversation completely in a different accent.
Right.
If you wanted. If you don't, then
no,
it might turn out to be complete trash.
we can try that, and yes, indeed, it will probably turn into complete and utter trash. But the thing is, it's very difficult because once you know a person, or once you've seen a person sounding one way, it's very difficult to kind of suspend disbelief about them. Like, say for example, what's his face? Hugh
Jackman?
No. Hugh Laurie.
Hugh Laurie, yeah.
Yeah. When he plays an American in Roadhouse. Yeah. It just doesn't seem right. It just seems completely inauthentic.
Yeah.
Which is probably all right for an American market that perhaps aren't so familiar with the guy.
Yeah.
Before that, I suppose people who live right in the middle of wherever his particular dialect is supposed to be from might think this doesn't sound quite right. But I think to us, certainly to me, it just sounds really weird because it's like the wrong thing is coming out of his face.
Well, I don't know whether, using House as the example, I actually very much enjoyed Hugh Laurie's character, and I think he actually he pretty much nailed, the accent he was going for. It's like, I think about, his name's got Henry Cavill, who played his latest incarnation of Superman. Is from England, yet he does an amazing job with his, American accent in the Superman films.
Yeah.
And Mission Impossible as well. Actually, going back to Mission Impossible, because I watched that the other day. He was in one of the Mission Impossible films, and again, he just completely nails it. You would never guess that he was British. Just from watching him in this film, and I just find it incredible. And yet, when I watched, I watched a film years ago called The Transporter, starring Jason Statham.
Yes.
Of which he tries to put on an American accent, and 10 out of 10 for effort, but it was terrible.
Yeah,
it was not good. It was not a good accent to listen to. And I kind of think I sound like that when I'm trying to do an American accent, and it's really weird.
But but again, in America, I don't know. If you're American and you're watching this, please let us know. But I don't feel like they would probably have the same view of it. I think they'd just probably take it more on face value. Whereas, obviously he's very well known, but I think that when you're used to having somebody talking it one way and then all of a sudden it's very, very different, you do notice the difference. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And the thing is, it's hard enough to be an actor anyway to try and, sustain pretending to be somebody completely different in the first place.
Yeah.
And, dealing with various scenes and the emotions that person would be going through and, all of that stuff. So you're pretending loads anyway. Then add into that you've got an accent that's not your natural one, and you've got to sustain that throughout a whole filming cycle. Just seems like it would be crazy difficult.
I was like, hard work, no doubt. And I don't envy the position, but I think about trying to put myself into those positions, and I just don't know if I could ever. But again, you give me, if you give me a script with a fixed dialogue to say, I could happily just practice it over and over again, and I'd even, like you say, you get a voice coach, or somebody who, even lives or has that particular accent, comes from that area, and you'd get them to help you. But just trying to improvise, just in an accent that isn't your native, I find that quite difficult, and actually I find it quite. I think the most difficult part is to push myself outside of my. Because I'm like, when I'm role playing, when I'm doing role playing games, these people don't know who I am. They don't know where I'm from. Apart from when I talk in my normal voice, they kind of go, "Okay, right, he's clearly British." But if the first interaction they have with me is me with a different accent, they'd be none the wiser.
Yeah.
Apart from that, they might be like, "Where the hell's this guy from? I can't pinpoint his accent." It sounds like he's British trying to be American or Scottish or Irish or whatever, and is clearly failing on it. But like I said, I'd always get to a word, and that's where I'd end up falling over. I remember when I was in school, we were doing this. We were all trying to be Sean Connery for one lesson in like design technology or something. I don't know why. It just seemed like fun at the time. So we were all trying to be Sean Connery for a little while, and I just remember. I'm sitting there going, to kind of get myself into character, I'm doing the whole vodka martini bit. It's like, I'll have a vodka martini. And I remember vividly, I'd be like, shaken, not stirred. And it's like, what the hell is stirred? It's just some weird noise that just came out of my face. It just makes no sense whatsoever. I don't even think I could do it now. I'll have a vodka martini, shaken, not stirred. It's like, it just doesn't sound right to me.
Shaken, not stirred.
See? Stirred. You're going stirred.
Yeah, stirred.
How does a Scottish person say stirred?
Stirred.
Started.
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 Started. But then you've got differences between it's not just like, oh, there's a Scottish accent.
No, there's loads of different.
There's lots
accents.
of different. Yeah.
There's loads of different English accents.
Yeah.
You're more of a Queen's English, and I'm more idiot.
But the other thing is, when it comes to like doing accents, it's, I don't know, if you're not doing it for a particular, like if you're an actor or something like that, then it sort of, obviously it is mimicry, but it also feels like you're mimicking people in a derogatory way.
Yeah.
Particularly if you don't have much of an accent, and then you're doing somebody's accent. It's like, oh, look, this is what you sound like. Ha, 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 ha. So that sounded like me doing French, didn't it? Ha, 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 ha. But you see, as soon as you start doing things like that, it's like, oh, hang on, you're punching down on, French people. What are you going to do next? Have a ring of onions around your neck and a stripy top. It feels a bit like you're taking the piss.
So that's just what they do, isn't it? They all wear, stripy tops, berets.
They all do.
And garlands of garlic.
Yes, it's a terrible stereotype, but actually it's true. If you ever go to France,
and they all have a fresh baguette in the basket on the front of their bicycle.
They're all doing it. They're all wearing onions around their neck and surrendering to somebody. But. But having said that, when you're at school and you're learning French, you're supposed to try and throw in an accent. So effectively, you're speaking French, and you're trying to sound French, and somehow that's acceptable.
Well, see, I remember, doing.
We don't say bonjour. Je m'appelle sandwich jambon. Et un beer, s'il vous plaît.
You say that. Now, I remember learning languages in school, and we all sounded like Del Boy in French. It was like, bonjour, ça va, au revoir. None of us wanted to do that. And there's this distinct problem of getting over the embarrassment of trying to do an accent, because we all know we're going to mess it up. But when you're kids, if you mess something like that up, you're gonna get ribbed for it, 100%. The other kids are just gonna laugh at you.
Yeah.
so it's kind of, quashed any idea of trying to practice something like that, because I know I can't do it, and I just don't want the embarrassment. And I think that might be where my problem is with it. But yeah, German was the same. Guten Tag.
Yeah.
I don't remember any other German apart from that, I'll be honest with you. Not that's appropriate for the podcast anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's... So yeah, trying to get over that whole... I don't even know what it is. Whatever it is that stops you from doing something, in inhibitions, maybe?
Well, it's inhibitions. Well, like I say, there's two things. One, there's the fear of looking like a dick, but also there's a fear of appearing as though you're taking the piss out of people.
100% that's what I'm
Unless
doing,
it's an individual. It's easier when it's an individual. So, say for example, with Sean Connery, you can say, "Oh yeah, tennis," and that's fine because that's very specifically him. Yeah. And also, there's an element of it's a tribute to the guy because Sean Connery. Yeah. We're not saying isn't it funny he says tennis.
Miss Moneypenny.
Yeah, Miss Moneypenny. It's nice to see you today at tennis.
You're looking particularly lovely today, Miss Moneypenny.
But
would you like to go out on my speedboat?
Speedboat. Well, what's that done to the conversation?
But yeah. Anyway.
So,
like you say, if you're imitating someone, but because like you say, they're famous and everyone knows who just from the accent. You know exactly who they are.
Yeah,
it's almost an homage, to that person rather than trying to take the piss out of them.
Yeah.
Like you say, Sean Connery is just the classic. Everyone knows who Sean Connery is.
Or Ringo Starr, like Thomas the Tank Engine rolled into the station. It's like that. That was shit, obviously, but it's that kind of thing. But then at the same time, if you start going, hey, calm down. Then you're in the territory of trying to,
stereotyping,
piss taking, stereotyping. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're stereotyping.
As if everybody in Liverpool goes, hey, calm down.
Hey, calm down.
It turns out they do, but that's not the point. It's like we don't want to give the impression that we're stereotyping.
No, of course not. But yeah, it's weird though. Ringo Starr's an interesting one. Like you say, he famously did Thomas the Tank Engine. But he also did different voices and slightly changed his accent for some of the characters as well, like Fat Controller,
Yeah.
You are causing confusion and delay, or something like that. Yeah. Again, that was a shit impression of Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right, calm down.
Yeah, calm down. But you see, but that's the thing, though. That's the sort of thing. I mean, it sounds like stereotyping because obviously that comes from what was it? It's Harry Enfield.
Okay,
I'm sure it's Harry Enfield, isn't it? Harry Enfield, and they all got the curly wigs, and they're all going, "Hey."
Oh, possibly, I don't know.
Hey, they do, don't. Okay, so that's obviously stereotyping, but I can see how using something like that. As I say, as we were talking about before, like an exercise. It's like you do that, and then that kind of gets you into the zone.
Yeah.
For trying to mimic the accent. So it's an exaggeration and it's a stereotype. But once you've gone, hey, you can go, hey, I'm just going to go down to the, such and such, and get some of those.
Yeah. So. What you did just there was the classic example of what I run into, and that's you're trying to do the accent, but then you're coming across words that you've never said in that accent before, and you're like, and you just go, whatever,
Yeah.
And you kind of just roll completely out of what you're trying to do, and that's exactly what I do when I'm doing it. I'm just like, hey, calm down, boobs,
If you got a script, it's a lot easier because then. As you say, you can try it and try it and, try and perfect it. But also it means that you're not, like, if we're ad-libbing, I mean, we're just ad-libbing now anyway, but even if we weren't using any kind of accents that weren't native to us, we'd still have difficulty with just do, here's some dialogue from something I'm making up on the spot. It doesn't make sense. Like when we're chatting, that's fine. And I suppose in a way we could probably kind of get away with a chat in a different accent.
Yeah.
But it's when you kind of, do an accent. It's like, oh, yeah, fine. But the real issue is, what am I going to say?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, read these words out on this card, but in a Jamaican accent. That's a very different prospect.
Yes. Yeah, see, I mean, for a little while there, I had, Somali pirates in my head from Captain Phillips.
Yeah.
Look at me.
Yeah.
I am the captain now. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Right.
Again, that wasn't a great impression, but
mm-hmm.
It's a classic line or a well-known line from a film, and you say it in the accent, and everyone knows what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas if I tried anything else in whatever accent they've got, I'd look like a complete idiot.
Yeah. It's also these things are easier to do if you've got more. I mean, obviously, it's about listening to accents and then being able to mimic them. But if you're surrounded by them as well, so people who may live in a particular area, even though they don't have the accent, they might find it a lot easier to be able to do it because they hear it all the time.
Yeah.
Equally, when people have moved around, so they may used to have had an accent, but then they've sort of lost it or it's changed a bit. They can still revert to it. Yeah. Perhaps if they're talking to somebody who still has it. And that's why people, go home to wherever they go home to. And then they kind of fit back in again because they just start using the accent.
When I first moved to the Midlands, all the kids in school used to take the mick out of me because I sounded posh. Because I came from Southeast London. And that's not something somebody from Southeast London would usually sound like. You'd usually sound like you're out of EastEnders or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever I went back to visit family, I'd always come back to the Midlands with the same posh accent every time. Yeah. Like you say, I just slip straight back in. I don't even know how or why I sounded posh. Does that apply to me now? Probably not. I just sound like every other idiot.
It's interesting, when you listen to old recordings of, radio announcers. We really used to talk about, BBC English.
Yeah, the old BBC English, yeah.
That used to be a thing. And then, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago or so, they started to creep in with regional accents to try and make everything more inclusive. And then now you see presenters and continuity announcers and so on and so forth, and they're dropping H's and T's and just sound like they've just been they've just been let out of something.
Well, exactly. I was just going to say you listen to a lot of presenters, announcers, whatever across all the kind of broadcast media, and like you say, they all sound like, and I know it's generalizing and stereotyping, but they all sound like the kind of people that you wouldn't normally want to associate with. They sound almost, and again, I don't mean any disrespect, they sound uneducated at that point, just because of how they talk. They've got that kind of, that certain dialect that, would lead you to believe that, they're from different. I'm just going to stop myself because I'm going to end up completely insulting someone or a complete group of people. But you get what I mean now. They just. It's completely changed now. The whole thing around broadcast media has completely changed. People just are who they are, and it's accepted now. And I kind of like it because I know that I definitely don't speak BBC English. I don't talk proper England, not by a long shot.
Which is fine, but I mean it's about people being clear. So you can have an accent from any region of Britain, and you can be clear as well. It's just when there are ones that aren't very clear.
Yeah.
Or television programs, like what's interesting is occasionally you'll have a documentary, and it'll be, a documentary about, people in, I don't know, Scotland or, I don't know. I'm just trying to think about who I do want to alienate and who I don't. But no, the people in Scotland or Sunderland and things like that. But it's a documentary, so they're not announcers or anything like that. They're not professional people talking.
They're not professional narrators or voiceover artists.
Yeah,
or
like
anything like that.
In the same way as I'm clearly not. But they have what do you call it? Subtitles.
Yeah.
They subtitle people speaking English.
It reminds me of was it Clarkson's Farm with his that guy that he basically just mumbles nonsense all the time.
Oh yeah,
and you're literally like, what the hell did he just say? You just haven't got a clue what he said. Not even Clarkson know what he said. It's just, it's perfect. I mean, I'd love to be able to learn how to talk like that. Yeah. Just complete incoherent nonsense would be so good to do. Again, that'll work wonders for role playing. It really would.
You do come across people like that occasionally, and they'll speak to you and they'll say, "Right, by the way,
yeah, exactly.
Sorry, what?" And it's one of those where it's the same as when you don't hear somebody because they're too quiet or it's too noisy, and after a while, it's just rude to keep asking them to repeat themselves, and then you just got to take a punt. You either got to say, "Oh, that's tragic," or laugh, and just hope for the best.
So I hope that's the right reaction.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky. No, the one, like I could not sit here and do a Welsh accent, but for some reason, and I'm sure it wasn't the case, but what's he called? The fireman, Fireman Sam.
Fireman Sam, yeah.
Fireman Sam, certainly in the latest cartoons, is from Wales. Or maybe I just didn't notice he was Welsh previously. But
I feel like the old Fireman Sam cartoons, it was a very soft Welsh accent. It wasn't particularly aggressive.
Maybe it's more noticeable. But anyway, Fireman Sam is from a fictional town called Pontypandy. Pontypandy,
yeah.
Pontypandy. So, along with the cartoon, obviously you can get the books. So when it comes to story time, if you have a child and you're telling the stories, well, I've got the storybooks. Well, I can read that, but I can just about do the basic dialogue in the accent.
Yeah.
But then there isn't much to that really. But then. Obviously, then I'm trying to do my best because obviously some of it's dialogue and some of it's narration.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, okay, I'm trying to do the best possible job of this. So I'm trying to do Welsh for the dialogue, and then back to me for the narration, and then back to dialogue.
Yeah.
And also you've got the different characters as well. So the women, you got the women, which obviously is a high voice. Not that bad, but yeah. So. Yeah, I can just about get by when it comes to telling a children's story.
But again, that goes back to you're scripted.
Yeah.
And if you so chose, you could go away and practice that dialogue in a Welsh accent if you wanted to.
Yeah.
You're prompted for what to say. You're not having to think about what to say and then translate it into a different accent. And I'm always going to say it's you're almost translating into a different language because it's not how you normally speak. You know? It's like I remember in school we did something about there's some kind of media class or something like that, and we got given like a bit of paper with like just a paragraph to read, but it was written out phonetically. So like words were written phonetically how they were supposed to be said.
Yeah.
So the only one I can remember is like where it'd be with a. It was actually written W E A. So you'd end up saying we're. So when you're talking with a B, I think it was like, this is what it sounds like when you're talking with a BBC accent. It was all written out phonetically. So when you spoke it as it was written, it sounded like you had some kind of Scottish accent about you when you were talking about it or when you were reading it, which was really good. And it'd be like, that's how I'd probably learn a script. I'd be like, you got to write that phonetically for me, so I can just read it as is, and that works for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's the old, beer can bacon, thing. You can't say beer can without sounding like a Jamaican person saying bacon or whatever.
Beer can.
That's it. Beer
can.
You
can't. You just can't.
Exactly, and that's it. It's like, okay, well, if I want to ask for bacon in Jamaica, I just know I have to ask for beer can. Perfect.
Beer can. No, it doesn't matter how you say it.
Is it beer can?
Beer can. Yeah.
But I know that if I said that in Jamaica, I'd offend so many people.
Yeah.
I'd probably get beaten up or killed.
Or they might just give you some cans of beer.
Well, they could, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if I said I wanted a can of beer, yes, they'd give me a can of beer. But hey, man, I want beer can. But there's another one. You could say, you want to say, hey, man, you'd just say, here, man. As in, come here, man.
Hey, man. Here, man.
Here, man. Here, man.
Yes, I can see that. I find phonetics somewhat confusing, though. Well, also because they teach in schools now. They teach reading and writing phonetically.
Really?
Yeah. So yeah. So well, in a way. So basically, like when I was at school, certainly, you'd start off with learning the alphabet.
Yep.
So you go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And you go, yeah, okay, I've got that. That was easy. What next? Well, now we're going to string some letters together, and that makes a word. Do it. Try it. Write it down 20 times. Okay, but now what they do is they do it all based on sounds.
Okay.
Which is totally weird. I mean, to me, it's like, well, hang on, how does that work? And I'm still not entirely sure how it works, but effectively, they learn sounds like, I can't even think of any. Yeah, basically, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they learn all of that, and then they put it all together, and that's why you end up with children who are at school, but they still wouldn't necessarily go look at an alphabet and say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's almost like that comes later, because what they're doing is they're learning at the.
They learn the sounds they make rather than what they are. But phonetically, they're learning the sound rather than the shape recognition to a name of the letter.
Yeah.
Because that's all writing and language is. It's just shape recognition. But no, see, I think I was like you. I learned what the alphabet was first. A, B, C, D, etc. And then we learned phonetically, the sounds that they make. And then you'd start putting words together, using those phonetics. And then you'd start to learn some of the little nuances, like sometimes it sounds like, like say I before E except after C, and the sound that combination of letters makes. And, if you've got the magic E and all that kind of stuff. And that's how you then kind of develop the written word. Because speaking, you're just like, well, the human brain is very, very clever in that it can, just pick up on whatever language you're.
Well, some are, yeah.
Well, yeah. Given enough time, it's like you could spend the rest of your life in, Nigeria and eventually learn how to speak Nigerian.
Yeah.
Because you'd just be around them for long enough that you would pick up on, but you pick up on more than just what they're saying. It's the tone, it's the context, it's everything else around it that allows you to learn that language. Whereas when you're writing, there is no tone, context. You have to phonetically understand how, the sounds that they make and how to then write out a sound that you make, using those phonetics. And language, I find language fascinating, but I just haven't got the patience to learn another one. Yeah. Two is enough for me. English and bullshit.
That was The Tuesday Show.
Get in touch with us. All the links are in the description. And until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.